You know, when you slide into your car and like type an address into your GPS, there is this unspoken contract.
Yeah, a total baseline of trust.
Right. You just implicitly trust that the voice telling you, turn left in 500 feet actually knows where it's going.
You definitely don't question it.
Exactly. You don't sit there wondering if the GPS has some secret agenda or like if it's hallucinating a road that just doesn't exist. You just drive. You trust the voice.
Because navigating is hard enough without second-guessing your guide.
Completely. And for centuries, I mean, that is exactly how we've been conditioned to read books. We open to page 1, we meet the narrator, and we just hand them the keys to our imagination.
Which is usually fine until it isn't.
Right, because what happens when that guide is literally driving us off a cliff?
Well, it creates this incredible sense of narrative vertigo. Like you said, navigating the world is exhausting enough without having to question the very tool that's supposed to be guiding you.
Yeah, you need that trust just to start the journey.
Exactly. So when an author intentionally breaks that trust, it transforms the entire experience for you as a reader.
Mm-hmm.
An unreliable narrator essentially acts as like a barrier between you and the actual truth of the story.
They're standing in the way of the facts.
Right. Instead of just passively absorbing a plot, you are suddenly forced to piece together what actually happened completely on your own.
Which changes everything about how you read.
It really does. You go from being a passive passenger to a highly active participant in the story.
And what we are looking at in our deep dive today is that this unreliability, it comes in drastically different flavors.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge spectrum.
Yeah, like sometimes it is highly deliberate. The narrator is actively hiding this massive, unsettling twist that just lurks throughout the entire story, only to, drop it on you at the very end.
The ultimate rug pull.
The ultimate rug pull, yeah.
Apple.
But the flip side of that coin is just as fascinating. Often the deception is, it's entirely unintentional.
Right. The narrator is performing their role without any understanding that their version of events is completely detached from the truth.
They don't even know they're lying.
Exactly. They aren't trying to deceive you. They just, fundamentally misunderstand their own reality.
Okay, let's unpack this because we're looking at an incredible spectrum of narrators today. And I want to start with that second category. The ones who are innocently, or at least unintentionally, mistaken.
It's a great place to start.
Yeah, and we see this brilliantly executed in Ian McEwan's Atonement. Our guide here is Bryony Tallis.
A fascinating character.
Totally. And she is only 13 years old. So her interpretation of the really complex adult events she is witnessing is, well, it's heavily filtered through the lens of a highly imaginative, very naive teenager.
Which is arguably the most insidious type of unreliability.
Oh, really? Why insidious?
Well, because you don't see the deception coming, mainly because the narrator herself doesn't see it coming. She is piecing together a puzzle, but she's using the wrong picture on the box as her reference.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, she genuinely believes the narrative she's constructing in her head about her sister and the groundskeeper. She thinks she's telling the absolute truth.
But wait, let me pause you there.
Yeah.
Because she's 13, right? If a 13-year-old comes to you with some wild, convoluted story about adult affairs and crimes, I mean, most adults would just pat her on the head and say, yeah, okay, sure.
Right. Normally they would.
So why does her flawed perspective actually have the power to ruin lives in this story? Shouldn't the adults around her have known better?
Well, in a vacuum, yes, that childish imagination would just be dismissed entirely. But the crucial mechanism McEwan uses here is Bryony's high status in English society.
Ah, okay. The class element.
Exactly. Because she occupies this privileged aristocratic position, the adults around her lend this dangerous, really unearned weight to her words. Class structures create a massive blind spot.
So they just trust her by default?
Right. The police and the family authorities are completely primed to believe a wealthy young girl over a working-class young man. Her subjective, immature reality is instantly treated as objective legal fact.
Man, that makes me think of a specific analogy. Imagine a really young child who is like hiding under the dining room table, right?
Okay, yeah.
And they overhear exactly half of a really tense adult conversation. They hear a few out-of-context words, they fill in the blanks with their wild imagination, and they construct this completely fabricated narrative about what the adults are doing.
Right, which happens all the time with kids.
Exactly. And usually that's harmless. But in Bryony's case, it's like that child has the power to take that half-heard, totally misunderstood conversation and like draft legally binding documents with it.
That is exactly exactly how it functions.
Yeah.
And the sheer weight of that mistake culminates in a massive revelation.
The ending of that book is just devastating.
It really is. The true identity of the narrator and her profound regret as an older woman looking back is only revealed at the very end of the book.
It just changes everything.
It does. It forces you to mentally flip back to page 1 and question every single interaction, knowing that the entire book was basically a retroactive untangling of a childhood mistake.
Which is, an unreliability born of innocence and age. But what happens when the narrator's brain is fundamentally broken by illness?
That is a very different territory.
Yeah, that takes us out of the English countryside and straight into Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right. A completely different, much more visceral, kind of unintentional distortion.
Exactly. We are in a psychiatric ward, and the story is told from the point of view of Chief Bromden.
Such a powerful narrator.
He really is. He's narrating the story of another patient, Randall McMurphy, who is aggressively rebelling against the ward's overseer, Nurse Ratched. But Bromden's first-person narration isn't just naive. It is severely clouded by his own psychological state.
What's fascinating here is how the mechanics of his hallucinations function within the text. Unlike Bryony, who just misinterprets social cues, Bromden's actual sensory perception of reality is totally fractured.
Like, he literally sees things that aren't there.
Yes. He sees literal machinery hidden in the walls of the ward. He experiences this suffocating fog that just rolls into the room.
It's so intense.
It is. His brain is projecting his internal feelings of oppression into physical, external hallucinations.
But Kesey doesn't try to trick the reader into thinking the fog is real, right? I mean, there is a massive red flag thrown up in the very first chapter.
Oh, yeah. He lays it right out there.
Yeah, Bromden admits right up front, and this quote is wild. He says, "It's still hard for me to have a clear mind thinking on it, but it's the truth, even if it didn't happen."
Such a brilliant line.
That line just breaks your brain a little bit. How do you even process that as a reader, the truth, even if it didn't happen?
It's honestly one of the greatest lines in literature because it demands that you, the reader, actively separate factual, objective reality from emotional truth.
Right.
Bromden is telling you that the literal events he's describing might be heavily colored by his hallucinations.
So the fog might not exist.
Exactly. The fog isn't real. But the underlying emotional reality, the suffocating mechanical oppression of Nurse Ratched's ward, that is absolutely true.
Oh, I see.
He's an unreliable narrator of literal facts, but he is a completely reliable narrator of the emotional stakes.
Wow. Okay, so you basically have to learn to translate his hallucinations to understand the actual plot of the book.
Precisely. You have to decode it.
Okay, so Bryony and Bromden are narrators who are limited by their youth or their illness. Their unreliability is essentially a tragic byproduct of their circumstances. They literally can't help it.
Right. It's out of their control.
But what happens when a narrator actively chooses to fracture their own reality?
Well, then we step out of the realm of the innocent into something much, much more chaotic.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Paula Hawkins, the girl on the train, introduces a massive shift in how this unreliability is structured. Illness is involuntary, but what about self-inflicted damage?
And Hawkins multiplies that complexity by giving us not one, but 3 different narrators.
Which is just so stressful to read.
It is. Every single one of them has their own distinct reliability issues. It's a narrative minefield where you are constantly cross-referencing conflicting accounts just to triangulate the actual truth of this missing person case.
A minefield is the perfect word for it. And the focal point here is Rachel. She is entirely open about her severe alcoholism.
Very open.
Yeah, she actively acknowledges that she has blacked out massive chunks of her memory on the night in question, and she admits that this is a huge barrier when she's trying to, play detective.
Which puts the reader in this incredibly precarious position. You are effectively trying to solve a mystery alongside a lead investigator who just keeps deleting her own evidence.
Right. But let me challenge the mechanics of that dynamic for a second.
Sure.
Because if a narrator comes to you and openly admits, hey, I have these memory blackouts, I am flawed, I can't remember everything, doesn't that ironically make them seem more trustworthy?
That is a really interesting point.
Right. Because they are being so painfully honest about their flaws, it almost creates this false sense of intimacy. You read that and think, well, she wouldn't lie to me about the murder. She just told me her darkest, most embarrassing secret.
That is the exact psychological trap Hawkins is setting for the reader.
Oh, so it's on purpose.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
By admitting to the blackouts, Rachel establishes a bond of extreme vulnerability with us. We are hardwired to trust someone who is willing to expose their deepest weaknesses.
It manipulates our empathy.
Exactly. It's a total manipulation of our empathy.
Yes.
While she is honest about the fact that she forgets, it doesn't change the reality that the information she does provide is fundamentally compromised.
Right.
Her honesty about her flaw doesn't magically repair the flaw itself.
Man, it's like trusting a mechanic who tells you, I'm legally blind, but hey, I'll fix your brakes.
That's a great way to put it.
You appreciate the radical transparency, but you still absolutely should not drive that car.
Definitely don't drive the car. And that specific formula of the vulnerable but broken narrator, it became a massive cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah. It was everywhere.
The sheer success of The Girl on the Train in 2015 essentially spawned an entire cottage industry of unreliable narrators. It directly paved the way for massive hits like The Woman in Cabin 10 and The Woman in the Window.
People just couldn't get enough of it.
Right. Readers became absolutely addicted to the thrill of playing detective with a compromised, self-sabotaging guide.
The thrill of the missing memory. It just works so well. But, you know, if Rachel's reality is fragmented by substances she pours into a glass, our next narrator's reality is fragmented by pure, unadulterated psychopathy.
Oh boy. Yes.
We are talking about Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho.
This takes the concept of unreliability to its most extreme, really nihilistic edge.
It's so dark. The
Yeah.
narrator is Patrick Bateman, and he's giving us this disturbing first-person account of being a serial killer in 1980s Manhattan. But the unreliability here isn't about memory loss or youth. It's about a bizarre, completely flattened emotional landscape.
Flattened is the perfect word for it.
Yeah, he shares details in this monotonous, obsessive way. He just jumps between his highly specific opinions on, like, Whitney Houston albums, the incredible material excesses of his Wall Street job, and then the graphic, horrific ways he murders people, all in the same breath.
And the mechanism Ellis uses here is syntactic flattening.
What does that mean, exactly?
Well, Bateman delivers a review of a pop album with the exact same emotional weight, the exact same meticulous cadence as he describes a dismemberment.
Wow. Yeah, he really does.
It flattens morality completely. But the true genius of his unreliability is how the physical reality of his world begins to fray at the edges.
Right, things just stop making sense.
Exactly. The inaccuracies begin to pile up in plain sight.
Yeah, it's not just that he has a weird tone. The actual facts of his universe start breaking down. Like, people confuse him for other people constantly.
All the time.
And he claims to have killed people who literally later show up at dinner parties alive and well.
Exactly. This accumulation of impossibilities forces the reader to stop analyzing what he's doing and start questioning whether any of it is actually happening.
Wait, is he even killing anyone?
That's the question. You are reading this horrific account, and suddenly you have to ask yourself why there is a massive gap between objective reality and Bateman's version of his life.
Right.
Is he a prolific serial killer who just exists in a society too self-obsessed to notice? Or is he a completely delusional Wall Street broker having violent, impotent fantasies?
It leaves you completely untethered. You realize you've been riding in the passenger seat with someone whose internal GPS isn't just breaking, it's basically routing you through hell.
A very accurate description.
But while Bateman and Rachel offer these intensely fractured, very messy realities, there is a final category we really need to look at.
The most controversial one.
Yes. Because this is where we see the most controversial narrators of all. They aren't confused, they aren't blacked out, they aren't hallucinating. They are intentionally, brilliantly hiding massive twists in plain sight.
This is the realm of the grand deception. Unreliability as an act of survival, or an act of pure authorial misdirection.
So let's look at survival first, with Jan Martel's Life of Pi. I think most of us know the basic cultural footprint here, right?
It's a very famous story.
Yeah. Pai Patel is in a shipwreck. He's forced into a lifeboat, and he finds himself accompanied by a literal menagerie of zoo animals.
Yeah.
Most notably, a Bengal tiger named Richard Parker.
Right.
As the other animals meet their ends, Pai and this tiger are left alone on this tiny boat for more than 200 days before finally washing ashore, and then the tiger just runs off into the jungle and never to be seen again.
On its face, it sounds like magical realism, like a fable.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because surviving 200 days on a lifeboat with an apex predator defies all logic.
It really does. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, Martel's use of unreliability isn't just a stylistic quirk. It is the entire philosophical core of the novel.
Because of the ending.
Exactly. As the book concludes, the narrative rug is gently pulled. we are presented with a second, entirely different story about his time on the boat.
A much darker story.
Yes, a story involving other human survivors, starvation, and extreme brutality. It is a much more likely and much more horrifying explanation of what actually happened.
Which completely changes how you view the entire book.
It recontextualizes everything.
It makes me think of the mechanics of psychological trauma. Like, imagine having to swallow an incredibly bitter, toxic pill just to survive an unimaginable tragedy.
Right.
The human brain simply cannot handle the bitterness of what people do to each other when they are starving, so it wraps that bitter reality in a thick, fantastical, sugary coating.
That's a beautiful analogy.
The story with the zoo animals and the noble tiger, that is the sugary coating. It's the only way Pai's mind could process the brutal reality of his survival.
That is a profound way to look at it. The unreliable narration becomes a literal act of psychological preservation.
He has to lie to survive.
Right. The narrator isn't lying out of malice. He's constructing a myth to survive his own memory. And Martel leaves the ultimate choice to the reader.
You have to choose which one to believe.
You do. You are presented with the brutal, literal truth and the beautiful, allegorical lie. Both are technical narratives of the exact same event, but you have to decide which one you prefer to believe.
It's just brilliant. But, if Pai's deception is an act of survival, our final narrator's deception is a calculated, cold-blooded trick.
The ultimate trick.
And it caused genuine outrage when it was published. We are talking about Agatha Christie's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd.
The absolute apex of the murder mystery genre, and perhaps the most famous unreliable narrator in modern literature.
The setup is classic Christie. A wealthy man is murdered, and the legendary detective Hercule Poirot is on the case. But the mechanics of the unreliability stem entirely from the structural framing here.
How the story is told.
Yeah. The investigation is told from the first-person perspective of Dr. James Shepherd. He's the local physician who is actively assisting Poirot. He is the Watson to Poirot's Holmes.
And we really have to look at what the Watson archetype represents to a reader.
Right, because there's a lot of baggage there.
Exactly. By the time Christie wrote this, readers had been conditioned by decades of Sherlock Holmes stories to implicitly trust the sidekick.
We just assume they're the good guy.
The sidekick is our proxy. They are the steady, objective observer meticulously documenting the genius of the detective. We are hardwired to never, ever suspect them.
Which is exactly how Christie traps us, because the twist ending completely redefines Shepherd's role.
Changes everything.
He isn't just the narrator. He is the murderer. He has been writing the very manuscript we are reading as a way to document Poirot's investigation while actively steering it away from himself.
But how he does it is the real masterclass.
Oh, because he doesn't actually lie, right?
Exactly. He doesn't explicitly lie to the reader. He uses the tactic of lying by omission.
So sneaky.
He meticulously documents exact timestamps, dialogue, and movements. But he simply leaves out the 5-minute window where he committed the murder.
Unbelievable.
He writes, "I did what little had to be done," letting the reader assume he meant medical duties, when in fact he was hiding the murder weapon.
And people were furious. There was actual controversy. Readers felt tricked, like she had broken the unwritten rules of the detective genre.
They felt betrayed because she weaponized their own reading habits against them.
Yeah.
By turning the trusted Watson figure into an unreliable narrator, she pulled off the ultimate literary sleight of hand. She didn't just fool Poirot, she made the reader an unwitting accomplice to the cover-up.
Wow. So what does this all mean? We've looked at 13-year-old Brandy misinterpreting the adult world, Brondon battling hallucinations, Rachel drowning her memories, Bateman flattening morality, Pai surviving trauma, and Dr. Shepherd just weaponizing our trust.
It's quite a lineup.
It is. And whether the unreliability is born of age, illness, coping mechanisms, or brilliant authorial misdirection, they all serve a vital function.
Fundamentally, these books act as a training ground.
A training ground.
Yeah, they train us to be highly critical consumers of information. They remind us, in a very visceral, entertaining way, that we cannot passively accept everything presented as fact.
We have to do the work.
We have to actively look for the hidden reality beneath the text. We have to question the source, hunt for the gaps in the timeline, and recognize the difference between a factual truth and an emotional one.
It's like a heavy workout for your critical thinking skills, just disguised as a compelling story.
It really is. And this raises an important question, one that extends far beyond the pages of these 6 books.
Oh, what's that?
If we can see how easily these fictional narrators completely rewrite reality, often without even realizing they are doing it, How often do we act as unreliable narrators in the stories we tell ourselves about our own lives?
Oh man, that hits close to home.
Think about the mechanics of memory. Are we constantly editing out our own inaccuracies?
I mean, probably.
Right. Do we lie by omission when recounting an argument to a friend just to make sure we sound like the reasonable one?
I think we all do that a little bit.
Exactly. How much of our own personal history is just a sugary coating over a truth we'd rather not face, perfectly crafted to make us the reliable heroes of our own internal stories?
We are all walking around with our own internal Watson, carefully editing the manuscript of our lives. That is an incredible thought to leave on.
It's definitely something to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We highly encourage you to pick up one of these books, embrace the confusion, and let yourself get a little lost in the deception.
It's worth the trip.
Because sometimes when the GPS is broken and the voice telling you to turn left is completely lying to you, that is when the journey gets truly unforgettable. Keep questioning the narrative, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.